The way to grow into the musician you want to be is through the right collaborations and mentorships. For example, in my case, playing with Les Paul for 12 years was totally amazing. But it was collaborations with artists outside of my classical background prior to meeting Les Paul, which were more influential in my musical development. And that included playing in rock bands in high school. Let me tell you about playing in rock bands in high school. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know how to play the chords because I was a classical violinist. One great story about being in a rock band, there was this guy, Mike Hallenbeck, who was like a year older than me, and I was playing bass, and he had written his own songs, and he was singing the songs. And one time he went from an A, what do you go, from like an A chord to a D7. And I said, wait a second, you can't do that. Can't go from an A chord to a D7. Because I thought, for some reason in my head, I thought that theoretically that was wrong musically. And he said, what do you mean? I did. That's what I did. I just did it. And that just floored me. Like, I didn't know what to make of that. So that was the experience I had working with rock musicians that totally transformed everything I thought about music. It happened again a couple years later in college when I worked with a blues singer named Ronnie Taylor, and I worked with a fusion guitar, really, I guess you could call him a guitar god, named Paul Brown. In both of these, they were totally different, playing blues with this old blues singer and then playing like Mahavishnu style rock fusion. Like, I had no idea what I was doing, but after I worked with those mentors, it changed me again. And after that, I worked from the age of 20 to 24, I played music in prison with convicts. And so the convicts I played with, they came from different backgrounds, but most of them were street taught, or they learned music in church, they learned music in some in Appalachia. And so I was walking around in the prison yard and like playing music with other convicts. Sometimes it was country music, bluegrass. Sometimes like guys were beating out hip hop beats on a picnic table and freestyling rhymes. There was like guys singing gospel music a cappella. There was a guy named Vito who brought in a saxophone, and he'd never learned the saxophone. So I actually like looked at this like beginning saxophone book, and I like helped him learn to play the saxophone. So a lot of these musicians in prison, they wanted to play music with me because they thought that I had all this knowledge and skill, and they wanted to learn about the theory side of music from me. And so I was trying to teach a lot of that stuff, but really I was learning stuff. I was realizing how much I didn't know about music. And when I was learning, like I learned how to do a two-step, and you know what a two-step is, right? It's like, and I had to practice that for hours, doing a two-step. And they kept telling me, like, it's not right, just keep working on it, right? So after that, when I got out of jail when I was 24, I started working with professional jazz musicians, like a lot of great jazz musicians in my late 20s and my early 30s. And all those jazz musicians taught me so much about how to solo, how to improvise, how to think about harmony, just like different vocabularies, all these things. But it was every time I would like play duos with the piano players, like Bobby Floyd was a huge mentor of mine. And I've got some videos on this channel of me playing duo with Bobby. I would just listen to him, and I would just ask him questions on the breaks of our duo gigs, and that made me better. And I moved to New York, and I played with more modern jazz musicians, and on the gig, I would just feel totally intimidated, like, what is he doing on the saxophone? What is he doing on the guitar? What's the drummer playing? I can't find it. I can't figure it out. And then also in New York, I got to play with some great Cuban musicians, including Dafnis Prieto, who even won the MacArthur Award. So he was brilliant, and he would be playing these like Cuban claves like in like 11 and 8, and then like mixing it with like jazz harmonies and metric modulations. I mean, I was completely out of my depths, right? Then I spent a lot of time in Spain, so I learned from flamencos in Spain. I would just sit there for hours listening to flamenco jams, and like I couldn't find the downbeat half the time. And then I met Appalachian fiddlers in Tennessee. I could never learn the tunes. I had no idea what was going on. But if I stuck around long enough, I stuck around longer and longer, I started to get the feel for it. My whole point is, this is how you develop as a creative musician. So if you're a classical musician and you want to be more of a creative musician, you need to have these collaborations. So in every case of these collaborations, I had no idea what I was doing at the beginning. And so I just focused on being open to learning, to listening, even though it didn't make sense to me, even though it was frustrating. And I would just learn from the musicians that I was collaborating with and try to understand the things that they'd experienced, which I had not experienced. Those musicians were mentors and teachers, and they were giving me access to new language and new skills. And that's what ultimately gave me my skill set and the confidence and prepare me to be able to teach at Berklee, to play with musical heroes like Les Paul, like Victor Wooten, like Dafnis Prieto, like all these people, to record and arrange and produce the string recordings on films, on albums, on commercials, and all kinds of other stuff that I've done in my career. Like, that was what prepared me. And that's what will prepare you. You'll become the musician you want to be through collaborations with composers and performers who have personal voices and bold opinions. That's what's going to help you become a creative musician. So here's the thing. This is why I designed the Creative Strings Workshop. At the Creative Strings Workshop, it's a week-long intensive meeting, a summit, and you will be there collaborating in small ensembles with really strong artist band leaders, multiple ones. So you'll basically walk through that kind of same musical fire that I did, except you'll be in a safe space that's curated just for this purpose. I'll be making sure, I'll be helping you through this. So this is designed for you to experience the level of transformative meetings and creative collaborations that it took to shape my confidence and to forge my skill set. And even if you don't love the way I play, you should be able to see from this channel that I have a skill set, right? And I have confidence and I have a voice. So you don't have to like my voice to respect that I have a voice. And that's really what you want to do, is find your voice. So it's about giving yourself a chance to be the creative musician that you can be, to be creatively expressed. Taking the opportunity to face the fears that you might have of that. Giving yourself a gift of investing in your musicianship, right? Like your network, your self-confidence, and your growth. Reach out to me if you have any questions. If you can't make it to any of our conferences, reach out to me and take a lesson with me, a free private lesson. There's a link to that in the description here as well. But I want to be a resource to you. I want to help you do everything you can to have a chance to be the musician that you want to be.